Hi, you're joining us for the Inside Track on Real Estate with Yetta Decker.
And Ken Decker.
And we form part of the Decker team. Today we're going to talk about, do you move, or do you put an addition on, or do you do renovations, or what do I need to do?
Yeah,
What's the best thing for me to do?
It's a very common question.
Yes.
Many buyers or sellers, well actually clients of ours or future clients of ours, will call us in and ask us exactly that question. You know, the house is getting a little small. Do I add the family room on? Do I add an addition with an extra bedroom and on the upper level, family room, and then some basement level? Or do I even put it on Zono tubes and not have a basement under it to reduce the cost of the addition?
Right.
All kinds of things like that. And there's so many factors that are involved in determining whether that's the right decision for you and your family or not. We're going to hit a number of them today, but definitely not an exhaustive list. And it really is important that you have a professional in and look at what your plans are. Maybe have a plan drawn, bring a builder in, and then look at the costing and the pros and cons of both.
Right. And probably one of the biggest factors that I would encourage people to seriously consider is if the home is in an area that it is already large for the community or larger than most, then doing a renovation or a significant addition probably is not going to give you a great return.
No.
So that would be one thing to sort of be leery of. Now, the other flip side of that is you love your location, you can't replace the location, you're close to town, you're on bike paths, you're in a perfect setting, you're backing trees, and you're thinking, I can't replace my location. If I can't replace my location, then although from a cost effectiveness, it may not be effective to do an addition, except it may still make sense. Because you don't want to live anywhere else.
Yeah, and when people tell me, when I leave here, I'm leaving in a pine box, then who cares about the resale value? If you're going to be there for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, and you're going to get the enjoyment and the lifestyle out of what you've done, then it's paid for itself, and who cares about whether you get your money back or not at the end?
Exactly. So there are so many things to consider and think about. So location is certainly a big one. If it's the perfect location for you, then a renovation may make more sense.
Yes.
If the location is, there's lots of similar homes that are just larger or in locations that you even prefer, then a renovation or a significant addition may not make very much sense.
Yes, or maybe the location, when you start weighing the pros and cons of building, and then you say, well, you know what, if we were 10 minutes closer to work, or if I was 10 minutes closer to the church, or if I was 15 minutes closer to the kids' school, or whatever the situation may be, then maybe moving is the right thing because you attach a change in location, or maybe you've got a lot of delayed maintenance in your house or updating and you don't feel like doing all that work and you just want to buy one that's newer or updated more.
Right.
Then maybe that move makes sense. And that's why a one-on-one consultation is really going to help us there to come up with the right thing for you and your family.
And one thing you want to look at as well is sort of the cost of the move versus the cost of doing the addition.
Yes.
So that would be another significant factor to always weigh is what is my cost? If the move is going to cost me almost as much as my renovation, then although I may not get a return on my addition or my renovation, it may still be worthwhile because I get exactly what I want.
Yep.
Provided I'm getting exactly what I want. Sometimes the challenge with doing a renovation is even after the plans are drawn and you've laid it all out, you look at it and you realize that still isn't quite what you're after. It's still not what really suits your lifestyle needs. Sometimes a renovation or an addition doesn't work. The flow of the house just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, many times the floor plan of a house isn't designed for an addition, so you end up going through a bedroom to get to something, or you end up when people walk in, it just doesn't feel like it was designed properly for the traffic flow and the openness or whatever.
Right.
Other additions are fabulous, where they blow out a back wall and open the kitchen up, put a family room there, and make it, an eating bar, and they can look fantastic.
And it feels like it should always have been there.
Yes.
And you don't even know how the house could have functioned without that new space added. So it really has a lot to do with where you're adding the space and what it will do to the flow, whether it's even worth considering.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Now another thing that you want to look at is the house the average in your neighborhood?
Right.
You don't want to be the smallest, and you don't want to be the most expensive. And so what happens is if you start renovating or adding additions, and your house then becomes the biggest, best house in the neighborhood, you're significantly going to lose value because you've just over improved it for the neighborhood and what the sales are. And in real estate, we know that it's very difficult to get the highest sale in a neighborhood.
We've gotten it many times, though.
Yes, but it's difficult.
It is.
And do you get it what it would have been worth if it had been in a neighborhood where all of them have main floor family rooms and 2-car garages, and so we got to look at that very closely as well.
And again, that comes back to what I mentioned at the beginning of the show, is if you're going to stay there indefinitely, and Ken mentioned as well, or the better part of indefinitely, then it really probably doesn't matter. You've got to make that decision for yourself, whether it matters or not that the value is not being retained. So we're talking a fair bit today about what does it mean from a real estate perspective? Is it wise from a monetary? And then you have to determine for yourself from a lifestyle perspective whether it really does make sense to have the biggest and best house on the street, because you can't imagine living in it on any other street.
Yeah, and so it's for your pleasure and your use, and not for that resale value.
Right.
Now, that's the extreme case.
Right.
Do I add on? Do I do major renovations, or do I move? Now, many times people come to us and they go, well, what about little renovations? Should I change the bathroom out? Should I change to hardwood flooring? Should I paint? Should I put a new kitchen in? Which we call still a fairly big renovation, but it's not an addition. It's not a major renovation.
Right. It's surface. It's cosmetic. So often our distinction would be over major and minor would be, is it more of a cosmetic nature, just the aesthetics, or is it a bigger structural issue, and am I actually adding square footage and space? Right.
So let's talk about more on the, do I renovate? Do I renovate for my own purposes? Do I renovate for selling? Okay.
Right.
And many people will call us in, and that's one of the major questions we get is, do I paint? Do I change the flooring? Do I do this? Do I do this for sale purposes? So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Now, certain things that you're going to do from a sale perspective, I mean, paint is a given. Painting pretty much always is going to give you a return on investment.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Appraisal Institute lists what different renovations will actually give you on a resale side of things. And they list paint at 50 to 100%.
Increase.
Increase.
Not that you're just getting 50% of its value or 100% of its value.
No. 50 to 100% of the value. So if it costs, let's say you had a painter come in and paint your house throughout for $3,000 or $4,000 or whatever, it depends on the size of your house. And they're saying you'll get an extra $2,000 to $4,000. If you spent $4,000 on painting, you would get $2,000 to $4,000. Now we say that's the best investment you can make, because typically, now if you're poor at painting, don't paint, because you're going to decrease the value of the house. If you're a great painter, then paint it yourself.
Yeah.
And you'll paint a house for a few $100s in paint, $400 or $500 in paint. And if it was in poor condition before, this is the thing, we got to look at, was it in pretty good condition? Or was it in really poor condition? And if it's in really poor condition, and we patch up the walls and we paint and it costs us $500, we may get $5,000 more for that.
Right.
Okay? And that's where, again, you want us in to look at, is it worth doing, is it not worth doing? Is it just the colors wrong or not up to date? Or are all the colors wrong in the house and it's just too many colors, too many, bright colors?
Strong, bold colors,
Yeah. So primary colors, then we go, well, okay, we need to do something here, because most buyers don't have an imagination, and the cost of the paint will be way less than how much you're going to get less in value in your house.
Well, and the other thing to consider when you're thinking about paint is, where is the strong colored paint? In what rooms is it? Anything you see from the front of the house is paramount. So if it's the outside garage door or the front door, you want to paint that at almost any cost. You want to get that
Especially
handled.
if it's chipped and because
Right.
the front door we spend a lot of time at opening the lockbox and doing whatever. And so if that's in poor condition, you definitely want to paint that.
Right. And then when you come in the front foyer, if you have a bright red or you have even if it's a nice color, and these, when we say bold, we don't mean that they're not nice or they're not pleasant. What it means is it doesn't appeal to the majority of people. And so if it's not appealing to the majority, then you risk someone not falling in love with the house simply because they don't emotionally engage with the house for reason of color.
Yeah.
Nothing more than color. So if it's in the front foyer, then you are usually further ahead to have more neutral tones. I'd be more concerned about a bright blue or an ocean blue in the front, or a nice bright apple green in the front foyer. If it was in a secondary bedroom, it would be much less of a concern.
Yes. And be careful not to swing the pendulum too far.
Right.
We've gone into homes where they just freshly painted the whole thing, but it's like a hospital. It's all white. And it just lacks warmth and appeal and
Right. And people sometimes will say, well, this is builder paint still. And I'm thinking, no, it's not builder paint. They just finished painting and had it professionally painted last week, except the color that they were recommended by the contractor was white. And sometimes the reason for that is simply it's fast to paint the walls white, the baseboards white, paint the whole thing white, and it's fast and easy and it gives you a fresh, clean look, except it also gives you a bit of a sterile, unless you're going for a very contemporary look, and certain homes certainly suit that and need all white. That would be more the minority rather than majority. Some warmth on the walls, not too strong, in still neutral tones is probably, generally speaking, what's going to give you the best impression, especially in the main principal rooms that you see when you first come in.
Now, many a times people ask us about upgrades, and they're upgrades in their mind, and yet they're really not. They're bringing the house up to standard, because the houses that are selling on the market are showing very well, and they're presenting well, and they're updated. So if you've delayed updating your house, or you have delayed maintenance, what you're doing, you're not upgrading, you're actually bringing it to standard. And if you don't do that, your house will sell significantly below market, because there's lots of people looking for houses that require a fair bit of work, and that they can buy at an under market value, do the work, and recoup some money. So there's money to be made there for many contractors and renovators who are willing to take on.
Or even just somebody that's willing to take, that wants them to build some sweat equity.
Yeah,
not
by
even
doing it themselves.
Right, just that they want to live in it. They maybe even want to live long term, but they want to purchase a bargain at below market value, and they're willing to do that and take care of your delayed maintenance.
Yeah,
really is what we're talking about.
So when we talk about upgrading your home, it may be just bringing it to standard.
Right. So
that you can get market value for your home.
Right. So some examples of that would be the windows haven't been caulked in the last 10 years. And it's split on the outside and the potentially moisture getting in. So now we're looking at something that's not been cared for, that simply needs to be cared for. Maybe some window seals have blown so that there's moisture between the two panes of glass. And that isn't really about upgrading, that's just about maintaining the home in a repaired state.
Right.
Will be some other examples of simple furnace. A furnace that's 40 years old or 35 years old that's still limping along, it actually now devalues your property. But putting a new one in isn't going to increase the value of your property significantly. It's going to retain the value that it should have had in the first place.
Yeah, and actually furnaces, the Appraisal Institute says 50 to 80% of the cost of putting the furnace in is going to bring your value up. So it's not a bad thing if you've got an old furnace, because let's face it, if a buyer's buying your house and they're tight for the down payment, they don't have $3,000 to $5,000 to switch out the furnace when they move in. So they're looking for a house that's got the newer shingles, that's got the newer furnace, that's got newer windows. They don't have to spend money for quite a number of years. That's very beneficial.
So it will also cause your home to sell quicker. Because the home, generally speaking, unless the value is evident in terms of what's not been done, So unless somebody's getting a bargain, because that home will sell just as quickly, the one that needs all the work, as one that's had all the work done, as long as the price reflects it.
Absolutely.
Right? Otherwise, you're going to sell much quicker in a home that's renovated or maintained. I don't even, we're not even so much talking renovations here. We're just talking maintained.
Yeah, so go back on that track of renovations. 2/3 of homeowners are, in a survey, 2/3 of homeowners were said they were going to do some kind of renovation on their home this year. That's a significant number.
Well, yeah, it's like 66.67%.
Very good. Now, some of the things that are high on the list are hardwood in the kitchen, home theaters, renovated bathrooms with soaker tubs and that sort of thing, like a little more luxurious than the norm. Updating kitchens, I think I said, with some with granite.
You didn't say, however, kitchens.
Okay. Kitchens with some granite. Built-in appliances are high up on the list. So those are the kind of the buzz renovations that people are really interested in doing right now. And then also we're finding resale, they're looking for those sort of things. A nice home theater room is a big feature. Now, it doesn't have to be, a sloped floor or like all out done, but a nice room that's set up for it with the right furniture and the right
Except
screen.
The furniture you're going to take with you probably anyway.
It doesn't matter. I know, but it doesn't matter because people come in, they see it, they go, oh, I could watch movies here.
Right.
And they just imagine living there. And they'll have to go out and buy their own furniture to put there. Right. But that's part of the thing.
So if you're joining us today, we're on the inside track with Ken and Yetta Decker, and today we're talking about, the first half of the show, we talked about moving, or do we put an addition on, or do we do major renovations? And now we're primarily chatting about the specific renovations. We started that just before midpoint in the show, so if you want to go back and listen to a bit of that, that would be wise. Anyway, you're joining us here, and you can check out archive shows, either of this one or any others, on chri.ca and listen to them, or at our website at deckerteam.com, and you can watch as well as listen there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So according to the Appraisal Institute of Canada, one of the largest renovations that you can do to get the largest return on your investment is bathrooms and kitchens. Right. And they're saying 75 to 100% of the money you put into the renovation, you'll get back. Now again, we have to be careful. Because if we put a $60,000 kitchen into a $350,000 house, or a $30,000 bathroom into a $350,000 house, we're not going to get the value.
We're going to get very little value back.
Right.
And
it'll sell fast.
It'll sell very fast. It'll be the cream of the crop on the street, and you won't get your value back as the seller. And the other thing to think about when you're doing a renovation, if the kitchen is already nice, just not your taste, then chances are you may not get any return on that investment.
Exactly. Maybe changing the knobs in the counter is enough to really change the feel of that kitchen. Put some granite, some modern knobs on, and suddenly you've transformed.
Handles. I think we'd be going to handles if we're going modern. I don't think we're doing a lot of knobs on taller cabinets anymore.
No.
That was old-fashioned.
That's one of the problems with an older kitchen. Some of them have the piece that goes down the middle above the peninsula, the top uppers, which blocks off the eating area from the kitchen. That's very dated, and so
even sometimes just removing that can totally really opens up the kitchen.
Yeah, take that down, put some new counters on, and
it's maybe enough, depending on what the doors of the cabinets are. And sometimes all we really need to do, or someone would need to do, is change the doors. Right? In addition to the handles, you can save money. Other times the layout just isn't functional and you actually have to change the actual cabinets. So there's so many different ways of considering how to do a kitchen. And if you're going to put the same cabinets back in the same place, the same boxes, then it may not have warranted replacing those, and it may have been
wasted money.
Yeah, a better return on your investment simply to replace doors.
Yeah, and not all.
And maybe even laminate. Yes. On the outside of the boxes.
Yeah.
You can change color, you can reface, so there's...
Yeah. Now, interesting enough, sometimes people will do renovations that actually decrease the value of their property.
Don't do that. Promise me you won't do that.
you may have spent a lot of money to get designer black tub with a raspberry toilet.
Well, that's not happening so much today. It certainly was happening, though.
But you might
Some
do
years
something
ago.
like that,
Right.
and then find, ooh, when you go to resell, you love it to death. Not everybody loves it, and we need to get the majority loving something.
Right. So you
Typically
can
to get
still
top
do
dollar.
right. You can still do something interesting and trendy, provided it's interesting and trendy versus just interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
some of the things that the Institute talks about, the Appraisal Institute, as far as values go, we'll give out a few more. Shingles, 50 to 80% return on investment. And again, not if your shingles were okay to start with. I had one person call me up and say, hey, they'd like to put a steel roof on my house and it's going to increase the value of my house. And I said, well, how old are your shingles? And they said, 7 years. And I said, well, are they falling off? Are they worn? Are they leaking? No. I said, then save your money, because it's just a waste to change something that's good and functional for something that's maybe a little bit better. You're
well,
wasting.
it is better.
Yeah,
you're still
wasting.
not. You're still wasting.
You're not going to get your money back.
No.
And a steel roof, you're typically not going to get your money out of unless you stay there for 20, 30, 40 years, because the idea is if you're staying there 20 or 30 years, you're probably going to have to change your shingles again.
Right.
So you've done it twice, whereas you could do the metal and do it once, and it's
Right.
probably still as good a condition 40 years later as when they put it on.
Right.
Maybe the paint's faded a little bit, but it's
And there's
not
many
really-
other types of amazing roof styles out there, or roof materials. So there's so many different ways of doing a roof treatment. You wouldn't necessarily do that to sell it. Now, if you're in the $1 million price range of real estate, you might, because everyone in the neighborhood has something interesting and architecturally unique, and so therefore it may be required. So a lot of it has to do with what value the home is in. What price point is it in as to what renovations you might do and how much you might spend on a renovation.
Right.
Spending $60,000 on a kitchen in some homes wouldn't be enough. In another home it would be 3 times too much.
Yeah. So other things that get you 50 to 75% return on money, a family room addition, a garage, a fireplace, installing a fireplace.
Windows and doors?
Yeah, windows and doors.
Like improving them. So if you have already a vinyl window and you just want to change it out from white to beige, you're not going to get 50 to 75% return on it. However, if you have wood windows, then changing it out, you're probably going to get 50 to 75% of the value to switch it to vinyl.
Yes, and if those windows are rotting and leaking,
Now
and
it's
the
a
seals are
maintenance
gone,
issue.
now you better change it anyways. Yeah.
Right.
Basement renovations, again, 50 to 75%. Interesting, landscaping. Landscaping, you can spend a ton of money on doing interlock and trees and shrubs and gardens and rock walls and all that sort of stuff. 25 to 50% is what they
On average.
suggest is you're going to get your return. So if you're going to spend a lot of money on landscaping, make sure you enjoy doing it. Make sure you're going to stay there and enjoy it for a little while. Pools.
Well, now the pool conversation is always an interesting one because it really depends on neighborhood. It depends on even the city that you're in. Now, Ottawa, for the most part, a lot of people like pools. So that's a good thing. And they tend to prefer the in-ground pools versus the below-ground pools or the on-ground pools.
The on-ground or the
The
above
on-ground,
ground.
the above-ground, sorry. The above-ground pools don't tend to, even if you've dug them in a little bit, that's what I mean sort of by half built into the ground, those don't tend to increase the value of the home, often not at all. And sometimes they even have a negative impact.
Yeah, sometimes they'll actually ask you to remove them.
Right.
Take them out before we close on the house because
Right.
they just don't want them.
Well, because it also depends on how much of the space in the yard it takes up.
So
an in-ground pool generally will increase the value of your home.
But only 10 to 40%. So you better be staying there a few years to enjoy it, because if you're going to spend
Right.
30 to 60, 80 grand, and we've seen in-ground
200?
pools 200,000 with all the landscaping and everything,
Yeah.
and to get back 10 to 40%, that's a significant loss unless you're going to stay there and your family's
Right.
going to enjoy
If
it.
you're doing, instead of going on vacation a whole bunch of summers, and you haven't spent money on vacation, and you're saying my pool is my vacation, then it's a valid way to go.
Yep, and it's a good way to keep your kids at home.
And their friends.
And their
at
friends
your
there
place.
so that you can keep an eye on them.
Right. And so what about things like AC? Did we talk about air conditioning units? So what kind of return will that give me?
50 to 75%.
Okay.
And
what
again, if you've got a functioning one that's working well,
right.
maybe it's not quite as efficient as a new one, you're not going to get that 50
Well, you won't
to
even get any
75%.
return.
But if you
often.
don't have one and you put it in, or yours is broken, or very, very poor functionality, 20, 30 years old, then it's probably a good idea.
Right. And then what about asphalt driveways?
Very low, actually. Asphalt driveways, they said 20 to 50%. So if you've got a gravel driveway.
Depending on where you are, because in the city we're going to have pretty much asphalt everywhere. Yeah. This is more country areas.
If it's all broken up, it's probably worth replacing it. Again, it's a maintenance issue, not a renovation thing.
Right, exactly.
Skylights. Some people like putting in skylights. 0
to 25.
To 25%.
Right. So let's not say 0. It's a little bit better than that.
Yeah, but it is one of the lowest things. So you better be starved for light if you're going to put in a skylight. Because many people, when I'm showing properties, they look at skylights, they look up and they go, and they're checking for leaks because they're afraid that skylights leak. Right. And they're a maintenance issue because you got to keep caulking around and tarring around the edges and putting making sure the flashing's working and all that sort of stuff, so they don't leak.
Right. And another one quick that we often talk about is carpet and hardwood. And so carpet to hardwood, it really depends in what rooms. If you have carpet in a bathroom and you're not going to switch it for hardwood, you're probably going to put some sort of tile in. It really depends on where and what it is. If it's the main living areas.
If the carpet's worn out or dirty or stained, you might as well change it
really
for hardwood
a bad
if you're
color.
going to change it out anyways.
Rather than spend the money on carpet, especially in the main areas. Bedroom's not as big a deal. However,
so we got a couple minutes yet. Talk to me about one of your favorite listings in Greeley.
Well, one that is wonderful and needs a wonderful new owner. It is available for immediate occupancy. It's in Greeley. It's $475,000, which is extraordinary when you consider the amount of space this home has. It not only has a good-sized living room that's off the back of the house, off the kitchen area and off an eating area. It is also at the other side of the house, on the other side of the kitchen, down a little bit of a hall, past a powder room and a main floor laundry room, is a very large, oversized family room on the main level.
Wow.
Which is pretty uncommon.
And this property has a den as well at the front, a
and
very
a
large
dining
den,
room,
which could be used as a office, a music room, or library.
Right, it's wonderful. And it also has 4 good-sized bedrooms on the second floor. It's Cape Cod, so it's interesting and charming. The septic has been updated. The windows have been updated. The home has been, from the workability of the home, has been cared for and updated. And you'll want to put some finishing touches potentially on kitchen cabinets and bathrooms. We've talked about that as a potential area to update. And so that may be something you'd want to do in this house, but a whole lot of space and an oversized double-car garage. And a great, beautiful yard. Yeah, brick exterior on the front, well, actually pretty much around the whole property, so really pretty to look at as well.
And a large laneway, room for like 6 cars. If you got a big family, this is a home for you. 15 minutes south of South Keys.
Yep.
Beautiful spot. So, thanks for joining us on the Inside Track on Real Estate. I'm Ken Decker.
And I'm Yetta Decker.
And until next time, bye for now.